Hi, and welcome to this special edition of Omni Edition Garden City. I'm Dan York with City Manager Doc Doherty, and we want to talk about the roads millage vote that is coming up in Garden City on August 7th. If you remember this community, you're pretty much aware of the fact that there is a roads millage coming up. It's part of a primary ballot that is out.
Yes.
And we want to talk about specifically this roads millage that has been placed on the ballot for this August 7th primary.
Yep, so the road millage is for $15 million over 5 years, and that'll produce about $3 million a year for the roads themselves. One of the things coming in as a new city manager, I noticed how bad our roads were in the city, and then I noticed how bad they were everywhere around us and realized it was an entire statewide issue. So as I have some of these community meetings I mentioned, this isn't an issue where you can really just look at Garden City and say, you know, the mayor and the council, why haven't they done something? Well, what about Livonia and Inkster, and even Canton has a number of roads I drove on recently. All the way out to Warren, I took a trip out, and it's unbelievable the condition of the roads overall. So it's one of those situations where it did fail in November, which was a little bit of aggressive campaign for the $50 million at one time. Where here we're asking for $15 million. A little more doable, I believe, easier to understand, and it's for 5 years as opposed to what that was for 20 years guaranteed. So when any resident is looking to say, well, what can we do about these roads? It's not something that we necessarily have in our budget, but it is something that we need to work together as a team and come up with across the city to say, here's something we can do to start.
So after the election that failed in November, the millage that failed in November, the city had to regroup and decide how to try to approach the roads somehow. And we looked at a lot of different ways to do this prior to coming up with this plan.
One of the big issues with the failure of the November election was $25 million in interest.
Sure.
And that's what turned off a lot of people that said there's got to be a better way. So one of the things I worked with staff on was, what if we just did a straight assessment for all homeowners? So there won't be any banks involved, there won't be any interest at all. It's just money in, money out.
Right.
And as we talked about the $3 million, that worked out perfect. $3 million a year equal the $250 or so a year. Unfortunately, as we went through the process to legally make sure it's allowed to be done, it came out that the city cannot abdicate its responsibility to set an assessment. Now, what that means is the city can say for lighting, everyone pays a lighting assessment. We can put that out to everybody, you paid a lighting assessment. But for us to say at a campaign or at a vote referendum to say, would you like to pay this assessment? We can't do that. We either put an assessment on the people or we don't. And the mayor and council were certainly smart enough to know this isn't something we just do on our own. Everybody needs to be together on this one. So also the other issue of doing a straight assessment then for the council would be everybody has to have an equal benefit.
Right.
So the lighting, everyone has street lighting. Some may have 4 lights or 2 lights, but you still have street lighting. And when it comes to a road millage, not everyone's road is going to be done right in front of their house immediately. So where's the benefit? To me, I would say the benefit is the 3 or 4 roads you might take to get to your house still is a benefit. But to do an assessment, everyone gets an equal benefit. So again, back to the drawing board of how can we put something to the citizens that makes sense? And that's where we came about okay, if $230, $250 a year might be acceptable, how does that work backwards? And that's when we came up with the $15 million over 5 years, gives us $3 million a year, which would be about $232
per person. And when it comes to the interest, instead of per house, so instead of the $25 million in interest, then it's about $1.8 million in interest.
Yes.
And if you do the math, that's a lot less interest.
Yes.
Even if you extrapolate that out to get up to $50 million over a four election period over 20 years, it's still far less than $25 million.
What they have all throughout Florida and Georgia and some other states they're called SPLOST. It's that 1 penny cent tax. So when you go on vacation, you see it's 8 cents or 7 cents instead of 6 cents tax.
For sales tax.
Yes, that's that 1 penny that doesn't seem much when you're purchasing something, but it means hundreds of millions of dollars to most communities. So when you go into some of these communities in these vacation areas and beautiful clock towers and fountains and boulevards, and that's not paid by just regular taxes. That's paid by this 1 cent. My point is with that is once it comes up every 4, 5, 6 years, the people vote for it again and again. They see the benefit. So the hope here is this is just the beginning to say to everybody, okay, we make a 5-year commitment, not 20 years, but let's go through 5 years. My guess is because people are going to see the benefit It's going to be well advertised. We're going to have a website that's going to show money in, money out. It's going to be clearly defined, no questions of what's happening, where the money's going. That after 3 to 4 years, when we say we want to run another one, that people would say, yes, let's run another one. And if you extrapolate that out, as you mentioned, if you did this for 4 different elections, that would be 20 years. Well, that 15 million times 4 would be 60 million. Similar to the one in November, which was 50 million at 20 years. This is 60 million at 20 years. The difference in interest was 25 million then. This one would be 7.2 million.
Right.
So you look and just go 7.2 million. So besides 10 million more in roads, 17, 18 million less in interest, we're looking at a 27, 28 million dollar swing. So for those citizens, which it lost by 23 yes votes, I believe 26 yes votes, I'm sorry. 26 out of 3,000 voters, 26 people would have said yes. We'd have a $50 million deal right now, but it would have been 25 million in interest.
And it had to be managed very quickly, and it had to have been rolled
Yes.
out very quickly.
Yes.
This is far more manageable in
Absolutely.
that it's smaller chunks.
Yep.
The residents get to revisit it every 5 years. If they
Yeah.
decide after the first 5 years they don't like the way the city handled it, then
Yes.
they
Then
vote it
we're-
down.
Yep.
And it's much easier to manage the projects this way too.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing, I know there's been a number of different questions on social media about different things and timing. Some people have asked, how can you do this much construction over just a few months we have in Michigan as opposed to what I know of Florida, as I'm told, is that you don't just go with one contractor. We would have a number of different contractors out. Some have specialties. Some are full redepth reclamation. The whole street all the way down to the base is removed. Other areas we're just doing sectioning. As you see on some of our major roadways, you'll just see those pieces of concrete that are 10 or 12 foot in size. Those won't be the same contractor. Even doing the same sectioning maybe in some streets won't be the same contractor. So our objective is to have a number of different contractors moving at the same time throughout the city so they can hit and move to the next
And
spot.
a number of different methods.
Yes. And that way nobody's saying to us in June or July saying, I don't know if I can get to October maybe. No, someone else will be doing it before that.
And the point of this is not to do the roads, okay, these are the roads that we've established that are the worst.
Yes.
It's not going to be a linear thing.
Yes.
It's not going to be, we're going to start with all the worst roads first because you have to spread your money around.
Yeah.
So it'll be some very bad roads in the first
Yes.
year, with some sectioning in the first year, with some patching in the first year. And then
Yes.
year 2,
Yes.
same thing. Some very bad roads, some patching, some sectioning.
And that's the thing I've talked to a number of people about is for them to understand all the roads are terrible in this city.
Right.
If we could say generically. So certainly somebody might say, my road is worse than someone else's road. Well, just so everybody knows the way the process generally is done, we have an outside consultant that has decided which roads are going to be done. And this is the passer system that they'll have section, if it's a 10 all the way down to a 1, it's determined by this process here. So we might be able to look at a road right now. Someone could say, well, my road, certainly it's the worst in the world. Well, it might be a 6. It looks horrible, but it's not near a 2 or a 1 like some of the other roads. And I want to emphasize on that. None of the elected officials, the mayor, council, anyone else had any input on saying, I want this road done or switch this road. Or what. This was absolutely done through fully done through the consultant of, here's what our passer system says. Now, the caveat to that is there are some worse roads not being done initially for the fact that we can do all those worst roads. There's a lot of more expensive roads that if we don't take care of them in the next couple of years, we're going to have to redo them from top to bottom.
Sure.
Which is going to cost a whole lot more money. So we're trying to do a mix of roads that are in terrible shape as well as roads that can be saved. And if we can save them, we can get them to the green light instead of yellow to red.
Sure.
We're going to be in a good shape, better shape long term. So over time, we're going to be still hitting those worst roads, hitting some of those median roads, and doing the best we can as far as with the money that we have.
So we've got a lot of feedback on social media,
Yeah.
like you do with everything now. By the way, gardencitymi.org/roads, gardencitymi.org/roads, or /vote for information on the roads millage and information on the ballot and a copy of the ballot. All of that is there. But one of the things from the prior millage that failed, one of the complaints was there was no specificity at all
Yeah.
on roads.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, we have specified the first 3 years of what we
Yes.
intend to do, and that is a caveat too, because it's what we intend to do.
Yes.
It's not part of the ballot. It's not a in concrete promise, if you'll excuse the pun.
Yeah.
Why only 3 years? Why not
Okay.
the entire 5 years?
Well, and just to recap, the second complaint, other than the interest, was who knows what roads are going to be done, can't trust the city, they're going to do
Sure.
their own thing. So our objective working with staff and discussing how do we put this out was if we at least know the first 3 years of roads. And that's what we decided was we can't guarantee the 5th-year roads for a couple of reasons. We don't know what kind of condition some roads are going to be in. Excuse me. If the Incredible Hawk goes running down the street in the next couple of years, that road may need to be done before the road we thought was going to be the 5th
Sure.
year. We also don't know what the bid purchases are going to be. The prices are going to come in. So if it comes in really high, we may not be able to get to those 50-year worth of roads that we put out and told everyone we're going to do. So we felt safe in saying at least these first 3 years of roads, these are the roads that are going to be done.
It's as much of a guarantee that the city can give.
Yes,
Without
yes.
it being a firm, completely solid guarantee.
Now, I do want to confirm another point is in the ballot itself, and we have a copy of the ballot here. It's actually going to be on the second side of the ballot. The ballot is double-sided this year. And everyone will be told that as they go in to vote. But one of the points it talks about in the actual referendum is that this project that we're doing, the roads, includes sidewalk improvements, drainage improvements, water sewer improvements, and other things, connected. I believe some people are saying, well, they're just going to take this road money and they're going to go to City Park and just do a big drainage project. Not at all. We have to put that in there for the fact that if we're working on a road and there's some drainage work or curbing that's put in with this road, no one can say, well, we only voted for roads. That means asphalt and concrete for that road. We have to say other things may be done while we're building a road. These things
Right.
are
If you
included.
have to damage a sidewalk to put in a road, you need to replace the
Yes,
sidewalk.
yeah. And some of those water and sewer in some of those areas, those things are going to be actually paid for out of the water department. So it won't be that every project we work on, anytime we do drainage, it's going to come from this.
Right.
There is money set aside to fix some drainage issues and sewer issues that we have. But I just want to clear up for anybody that says, don't trust them, they're going to spend the money somewhere else. Absolutely not.
Right. The Water and Sewer Fund is an enterprise fund in Garden
Yes.
City, which means it's self-sufficient, which
Yes.
means it's paid for by the fees that you're charged for your water and for your sewage. Very often in a thing like this, they will decide to, we had a huge sewer separation project in the city that went on for years before you got here, which is mostly done. That always came out of that Water and Sewer Fund, and one of the reasons they don't necessarily repair water and sewer that needs to be repaired, because if they have to totally destroy the road to do it, they don't have the
Yes.
money, we don't have the money to replace the
Yes.
road on top of it.
Yes.
So in this case, those things should be able to go hand in hand.
And that water and sewer fund must be used for water and sewer projects.
Only.
So nobody can, at this point, again, take our words and say, well, just use that money for streets and replace streets. It's only for that.
Okay.
So-
Now, we've talked about it on the video that we produced, and you've talked about it at the presentations that you've given. Residents are currently paying a judgment millage.
Yes.
So if they look at any of the information that we've put out, it says that the average homeowner will pay $232 in the first year, and then $104 a year in
Yeah.
years 2, 3, 4, and 5. Explain that.
Not everybody understands when they're looking at their tax bill what that's all about. Years ago, the city had to go into a judgment where they had to pay money to a developer for a project. So that is coming out every year out of people's tax bills at a rate of $100 some, 120 to 150. That ends next summer. So when you look at this payment, as we're talking about when it comes to fixing the roads, we're saying $232, meaning in the next year up to next summer, you're going to pay a one-time $232. Then after that, it will be only $104 in new money. Now, this is fuzzy math, and I want to make sure everyone knows that we know it's fuzzy math also. It is saying instead of getting the money back in your pocket for the judgment millage, saving $120, $140 maybe next year, just assume that it's gone and it's into the roads now. So it's when we're talking about new money, that means new taxes. In the first year, it will be a new tax of $232. But after that, if you take that judgment money into your pocket and put it back into the roads, new money is $104. So
Okay.
we're not trying to trick people and say, no, trust us, it's going to be cheaper. No, we're actually just saying if the money hasn't come back into your pocket.
Either way, your taxes are going up.
Yeah, taxes will go
Up in the
Yeah.
first year, and they'll still be up in the, well, they'll actually go down on paper in the
Yes.
second, third, fourth, and fifth year, but you'll still be paying more than you are
Yes.
now. One of the things that people have asked also is in the past, we have 100 miles of roads, and we've done assessments on roads for the
Yeah.
people who live on that street.
Yes.
But we've only done half a mile, maybe a mile a year
Yeah.
recently because we simply haven't had the money.
Yes.
People want to know why not just continue that plan?
We have approximately $700,000 a year that we receive through Act 51 that comes through the state that we can do some road work. And that's where people may have seen Craig or parts of Hubbard and some of these Bach. Some of these roads are being done a little bit at a time. And you can say, well, look, the city's taking care of it. That is not general fund money. That's money actually through a state program that we receive, as all do other cities. What we did do in those areas, on those streets, is charge $27 a foot for the homeowner. So if they have 100 foot, it would be $2,700. Now, there's also the misnomer at this point, those that did receive that believe that they actually paid 100% for their roadway. And that's where I talk about this is a team sport. We're going to have to get together as a community in a team effort, because some people I've heard say, well, I already paid for my road 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Why should I pay for someone else's road? Well, obviously you didn't pay enough for a $1 million road. You paid enough for about 5% of that road. So while people say they paid for the road, they actually paid 5%. The rest of the community overall through taxes paid for the rest of that
And
road.
even technically the rest of the state, because of how
absolutely.
Act 51 money works.
Yes, yes.
So
that we, and I had a couple of people came into some of the meetings already that had said, well, I already paid for mine a couple of years ago, but I was willing to pay twice as much. And I said, well, it would have actually been a lot more than twice as much if we charged you $1 million between that many homes. But on the other hand, they also were positive to say they just want to hear what other people's comments were, because they're willing to support, knowing their road is done, other roads are in such bad shape. I'd be willing to pay a little more each year if our roads can be done and look quality. And when we talk about if your road's not on the first 3 years, I've heard this. My list, my house and road wasn't on the first list, therefore I'm going to be against this. Well, your road might be done on the 4th year. We just haven't decided officially what the 4th and 5th year is going to be, or it might be on the 6th year if the 2nd year goes through. Some have said, well, if someone gets the road done in the first 5 years, how can I guarantee they're going to vote yes in the second round to get the other houses? You can't guarantee anything.
No.
But I can't imagine that the only road they drive on that is in bad shape was just their road.
Right in front of their
So
house.
many more roads around here. As you drive around this community, you're driving over some what looks like landmines and the moon. So overall, it goes back to the quality of life. If you're looking to sell your house in the next number of years, you can certainly say the money you would put in per year is nothing compared to what you would get out of your house. You're looking at thousands of dollars in increase in property values if the community is investing into itself and redoing roads and good code compliance, the purple bag challenge and the 4x4 and things that we're doing. Certainly the house value is going to go up thousands compared to the hundreds it's going to cost per year to do this. So right off the bat, you're looking at a positive, because if someone's bringing some new potential homeowners down a couple of roads to get to your house, even if your road had a nice flat road, they know what they bounced on to get to you. Your house value is not going to go up. For those that have lived here forever and plan on living here forever, that really becomes the quality of life issue. Could you imagine if something isn't done with the roads overall in 5 years, 10 years, what some of these roads are going to look like? You may want to live here for the next 50, 60 years, and if you've lived here in this place for the last 50, 60 years, at some point something has to be done.
I guess that leads to the next question. Should this not pass, what is the city's plan?
My traditional answer would be, I don't know. No, we'll ask again in November. We'll continue with the Act 51 money, doing one portion of a road at a time. What everyone's going to see this summer is Hubbard from Maplewood up to Warren. That section.
That's an example of what we can do in 1 year with the current money we have.
From Maplewood to Warren on Hubbard, that's all we can really
Those
do.
people still being only assessed 5% of the project approximately.
If it goes that way, yes.
Yeah.
That's and I believe this year actually we're doing one block on Cambridge and one block on James, which is nice to at least throw a little bit of something over there. But Cambridge and James, there's a whole lot more work that needs to be done on both sides, the east side of the city as well as the west side, in those two named streets. But that would be it. And there's no magic pill. There's no way the state's going to come to us and say, here's $10 million to go fix your roads. It's not going to happen when you think of all the other cities in the state would have to get the same type of benefit. There is no, let's cut a department and that way we'll be able to do something with roads. That's a small amount. I did read at one point, somebody had sent me a letter that said, if you didn't fix the ice rink, look, we could have done a road. Well, if you're okay with getting rid of the ice rink forever, then yes, we could have done a road, but you wouldn't have an ice rink anymore because the chiller had to be replaced after 40 years. Or anything else we do in a community, you can certainly say, well, get rid of that. We can do a couple of blocks. Yes, but then you get rid of what you're talking about.
Well,
so,
and if you take into account Parks and Recreation, for example, that has almost been an enterprise fund for the last 5 years, where Parks and Rec has been tasked with covering the cost of all of their projects. They may not do it 100%. but it's not like it was 35 years
Yeah.
ago when a lot of money went into Parks and Rec.
So, well, yeah, so when people do say, well, what about this and not that? It's kind of like, well, you got a leak in your roof and your car needs to be repaired. Well, I got to choose one or the other. You really can't, you have to do both. You're
Because
gonna lose
otherwise
your house.
you would have had to shut down the rink and all the operations.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's, or anything else we've invested into. It's one of those, it's almost like that Sim City game. You take something from here, that falls apart. How do you balance? And
Right.
I think the community, especially going through the 2008, 9, 10, the recession that went through, this community has really balanced itself to be well prepared for the future, to be able to do some great things. But when it comes to roads, it's got to be a team effort of everyone together, and it's a conscious decision. Every resident has to make their own mind up of if they're willing to do this or not. But they also have to understand if it doesn't pass, they have to also realize there's nothing else to fix the roads. I mean, it's one way or the other of how they vote, but just be prepared to be happy with whatever you decided at the end.
And again, this is the epitome of democracy.
Yes.
This is the residents being given the decision themselves as to where they want to go with this.
Yes, and it's the council saying to the residents, here you go, this is your
Okay.
choice.
So again, the election is on August 7th. The polls will open at 7 a.m. They'll close at 8 p.m. For complete details on this road's millage as well as the election itself, go to gardencitymi.org/roads for information on the roads, or gardencitymi.org/vote for information on the primary election that is going on that day. We have Meet the Candidates programming that is available on YouTube and on Facebook and on the city's channel, as well as a video about the roads millage.
Yes.
Thank you very much for spending time with us today.
Appreciate it.
All right, that's it for Omni Edition Garden City for today. Thanks for watching, and good night, everybody.